I'll be honest, Kirk, I'm a Vikings fan.
All right.
And
me too.
last year we had Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
That was a little difficult for me. So
Yeah,
I'm happy to have a Viking here.
I'm sure we have some Packers fans in the audience. Try to keep them silenced.
We didn't let them in. Obviously, we're here tonight to honor high school athletes and high school sports. During your high school career in Holland, Michigan, you played football, basketball, baseball. What would your advice be to athletes as far as participating in more than one sport, not necessarily specializing, or how they go about pursuing their career in different athletic venues?
Well, I'd play as many as you can. When I went to college, obviously the days of playing basketball and baseball were over. Looking back, I played 3 sports in high school. I wish I could have played or would have played 4 or 5. Today when I go out and play golf with Adam Thielen, he beats me by about 20 strokes, and I wish I had been on the golf team in high school so I could hang with him. So I would encourage you to play as many sports as you can for as long as you can. I think it develops your athleticism for the main sport, and I also think it protects you from injury. I found that a lot of my injuries happened when I started to only play one sport all the time. So not to mention the fun and the memories and the friendships that you build by playing so many sports. So I would encourage you to be as well-rounded as you can be.
I'm sure there's a lot of people here who think, Pro Bowl quarterback, veteran in the NFL, that you were, the best all the way growing up, but you weren't a 5-star recruit coming out of high school.
Right.
Didn't get a lot of interest necessarily from major Division I colleges. How did that push you through your youth sports career into high school?
Well, I always thought when I was a high schooler, middle schooler, that if you were in the NFL, it must have been the red carpet all the way through. You must have been a 5-star recruit, had 50 scholarship offers, and the same for college. You must have been a first-round picker, had a bunch of success, and that just wasn't my story. I played my entire high school football career with no scholarship offers. I played my last high school football game my senior year, walked off the field in a playoff loss without a scholarship offer. And so while Michigan State did offer, it was only a week or 2 before signing day and was at the last minute. And so I was always fighting to earn my place and to earn my way. And I had a broken ankle my junior year of high school, which hurt my recruitment. And so you just have to keep pushing and believe that if you work hard and persevere and stay the course, that good things will happen. And as Coach Shanahan, my coach in Washington who drafted me, would say, tough times don't last, tough people do. And so I've said in athletics and really in life, choose to be a tough person, and those tough times will come to pass, but you'll still be standing.
So what were you thinking your future was going to be when you walked off the field the last time in high school?
Well, I really didn't know. I remember walking off the field having to take the ACT the next morning, and it feels like a long time ago, but I remember thinking I better do well in the ACT because I don't know what's coming down the road for me in athletics. But my thought was to go to medical school, and so I was studying biology and chemistry and went through 2 semesters of organic chemistry in college, expecting to have to go to medical school. But as football became more and more of the focus, my junior and senior year, I really just focused on getting my undergraduate degree and then putting all my energy into football, and I'd say it's paid off.
It's a good thing Sparty came through for you there.
It's all worked out.
Well, you had a great career at Michigan State. I mean, and then, your senior year, 25 touchdown passes, 3,000 yards, 11 wins. What was your favorite memory from your college football career?
Well, what I often ask my teammates who retire from football and are no longer playing, I say, what do you miss? What are the things that I'm going to miss when I'm done playing? And they never say, oh, I miss training camp, or I miss practice, or I miss the weight room, or I miss the meetings and the film. They always say, what I miss are the guys, the teammates, the bus rides, the conversations in the locker room between meetings. And so I would say those are my best memories. Going back to college, high school, are those times cracking jokes with teammates or getting together after a game or after a practice to spend time with one another, because ultimately life is all about people and those relationships you build, and sports have a special way of allowing you to connect with people on a different level. And so I do try to really cherish those moments with teammates, because someday when I am done playing football, I won't have that locker room to go back to anymore. So those would be my best memories.
Well, a lot of these kids here obviously have been very successful in their high school career, so many of them are going to go on to play college sports, whatever it is. What would your advice be to them as far as how to approach college athletics, what things to appreciate throughout their college career, because it's probably going to go by really fast?
Absolutely. Well, College is different in some ways, and in many other ways it's the same. I mean, the same habits that you needed to have to be successful in high school, both academically and athletically, are going to carry over to college. You know, good time management, good work ethic, the ability to process new information through a playbook if you're playing football, or just a new system with a new coach, build new relationships. All these things are part of life, and while they're part of becoming a freshman on a new team in college, it's also a part of wherever you'll go after that. So if you've handled that well in high school, you'll be just fine and handle it well in college. I just encourage you to enjoy the journey and understand that hard work does pay off, and what you put in and the commitment you bring every day to not only your athletic success but your academic success, it'll make a difference, and you'll be glad you did when you look back on your college career at the end of it.
So from Michigan State to the NFL with Washington, and it was kind of a similar situation in that, you know, you were not that first-day draft pick guy. I mean, you weren't even the first quarterback taken by your team that year. Did you feel like a little bit in 12 coming in with Washington that it was kind of similar to your going to Michigan State? You had to prove yourself all over again?
A part of my story has always been somewhat overlooked, somewhat underrated, and I think that's a good thing. It certainly wasn't easy, and it was a greater challenge to have to prove yourself over and over, and there's always going to be people who doubt you, and I still face that. But I think it's driven me to work that much harder, to have humility, to understand I do have to earn my way, and there's no entitlement. I think one of the fastest ways to fail in athletics or to not live up to expectations is if you start to believe that you're entitled to success, and that because you've had success in the past, or because people treat you specially because of your success, that you're somehow just going to have it in the future. And that when you start to have that mentality creep in, that's when failure can come quickly. So I've always had an edge to me, a need to prove myself, and I think the great athletes will always have that, and I'm sure many of you possess that, and you will as you go off to college as well.
Is that kind of how you deal with critics now in your career? Because, I mean, you've obviously established yourself as an NFL quarterback, but there are still you still have critics. You just threw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, and you still deal with that. How do you manage people being critical of you as a player when you've accomplished so much?
Well, criticism will always be a part of playing sports, really at any level, but certainly in professional athletics. And people are entitled to their opinion. And I'm sure there are Vikings fans out here who want to wring my neck for the fact that we didn't make the playoffs last year and frankly didn't win a Super Bowl. And that's the goal. And at times I want to wring my own neck for the way I play and the mistakes I make. And so it's a part of the deal, and you understand. And also, you take the good with the bad. I mean, I'm living a dream, and not many people can say that. And so I feel very fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. And if it means there's a few critics at times and people on social media who don't like me too much, that's okay. That's part of the deal, and I'll take the good with the bad and hopefully be able to prove them wrong over time.
Well, I was just going to ask you, funny you brought up social media, because most of these kids are probably on one of those formats. And as they go on to college and rise to higher levels, they'll probably start facing some of that criticism or the trolls that show up in your mentions and those sorts of things. How do you deal with that, and what would your advice be to them on how to deal with those sorts of things?
Well, you just need to operate with self-control and patience and have maturity and understand that just because someone says something on social media doesn't make it true. They're entitled to their opinion, and they can have it, and it's okay. And it doesn't validate what they're saying necessarily. And ultimately, I just don't believe that my identity comes from what they think of me or my success on the field. If my worth and my value comes from my success on the field, it's going to go up and down all the time. I remember throwing an interception when I was in college at Notre Dame, and after picking myself up off the turf and pulling grass out of my helmet because I had been hit so hard on the play, and I was walking off the field listening to the sound of 80,000 people at Notre Dame Stadium cheering my failure. I had just thrown an interception that cost us the game. And listening to that sound of 80,000 people cheering my failure, the first thought that came to my mind was, thank you, God, that my life is not built on football. Because if all my life was about was football, my life just crumbled in front of me. And so ultimately, we have to have something deeper and more significant than just our sport. Because someday, for all of us, including a professional athlete, it's going to end. And it's not going to sustain forever. And so I just find my identity in deeper and greater meaning than just being a football player.
Well, let's talk about the Vikings a little bit. Happy with the offseason and with the team you have coming back?
I'm excited. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are back, so we should be just fine. Those guys are special. And beyond that, I think we have great veteran presence around the team, and the defense has been good for years, and so we don't expect that to be any different. And the draft seemingly was a great draft. Time will tell, but I think they got a lot of great players, and I'm excited for what the future holds. But it's a competitive league and a competitive division. And as long as Aaron Rodgers is with the Green Bay Packers, right. The bar's set pretty high. So I can't wait to get out on the field and show everybody what we got.
Well, a common narrative that you hear, especially for a player in your situation as well, it's his second year coming back, with a new team and another year under his belt, sort of, getting to know your teammates and getting to know the system. How important is that really as far as, learning to develop a chemistry with your teammates?
Well, as many of you athletes know, continuity is a big part of success. If you've been in a system or with a group of teammates or a coach for a couple of years, you're going to play better than your very first day, and I think my situation is no different. So I'm excited to have built more of a rapport with not only teammates but coaches and use that familiarity hopefully to help carry over to greater success on the field.
You and your wife, Julie, are very active in the community, faith-based initiatives. I know you were just here a little bit ago for that FCA event. How's being a father affected your life and your professional career?
Well, it's been a great reminder to me that life just keeps going. You can't stop it. It's unbelievable to look back that it was 2007 that I graduated from high school. That was 12 years ago, and it goes quickly, and it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, and yet at the time I was just a single kid going off to college, and now I'm married with two kids of my own. So life comes at you fast, and it's all been a great journey, and as I said before, I'm living a dream and never thought that my journey would take me as far as it has, and so I feel so fortunate and blessed to have the family that I have, and just want to continue to raise them to be not only great athletes, hopefully someday, but more importantly, great men.
Okay, Kirk, before we let you go, we have what we call the Fast Facts edition, and these are the real tough questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Toughest cornerback you ever faced?
Toughest cornerback. I'm going to say Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. I feel like every time I play him, I throw an interception to him. And I got to play him again this year, so hopefully this year I don't do it.
Best pass you ever threw?
Best pass I ever threw. I've completed 2 Hail Marys in my life, one in college against Wisconsin at Michigan State and one against the Lions last year. Yeah. So those are pretty fun because they're so improbable.
That one to Thielen against the Packers in the tie game, that was pretty good too.
That one was a tight window. That was pretty good. Yep.
What's your favorite thing about being a Minnesota Viking?
My favorite thing about being a Minnesota Viking, hard to narrow down. Let me just say all the positives, all right?
Sure.
Great coach, great locker room and teammates, great fan base, one of the best stadiums in the NFL, great place for our family to live. I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. I'd say ultimately I've got some special teammates that I'll have as friends for the rest of my life, and so I'm so glad I ended up there.
Best or toughest pass rusher you ever faced?
Toughest pass rusher? Boy, there's been some special guys from Von Miller and Clay Matthews to Chandler Jones, and every time they hit me, it feels like I get in a car accident. But I remember in college, the biggest hit I ever took, we played Alabama. And if you've ever seen the movie Space Jam with Michael Jordan, they had the Looney Tunes and the Monstars. That's what it felt like. We were the Looney Tunes, and Alabama was the Monstars, but we didn't have Michael Jordan. So their defensive end, Courtney Upshaw, hit me square in the back with his helmet, and I did one of those deals where you have whiplash, and my back still hurts when I get out of bed in the morning and swing a golf club from that hit. So some of the hits just don't seem to leave you after a while.
What was your favorite year of high school?
That's a great question. My favorite year of high school. Probably my senior year, just being able to enjoy the final year and appreciate it. I always say that high school were some of the best years of my life, and if I could say a message to any of you who are coming back for more high school years would just be enjoy the journey because it's flying by. And I've been blessed to play college football, professional football. My favorite years of football, just from a pure enjoyment standpoint, were my high school years. There's something special about Friday Night Lights and playing with your buddies. And after that, it becomes more of a job than just a game. And so I would encourage you in whatever sport you're playing to enjoy it so much because even if you go on to bigger things, there's nothing like high school athletics.
If you could play another professional sport besides football, what would it be?
I went to a Cubs game last summer, and I sat there next to my dad, and I say, being a quarterback in the NFL is pretty cool, but to play shortstop for the Chicago Cubs, that would be pretty special too. And my dad looked at me and said, I think you want to be a quarterback in the NFL. So I guess they're both great, but, I grew up playing a lot of baseball. That was probably my second sport, and so that would be a favorite of mine. But I've been getting out on the golf course a lot lately, and I think maybe if I could have a better golf game, I would take that over anything.
That can be your secondary career after football's
That's
over.
right. Let's do it.
Who's your favorite musician?
Favorite musician? I'll give you a few of my favorite bands. Switchfoot, Matt Carney, Ben Rector, and The Fray. Those are probably the four that come to mind right away. So I don't know if those are still cool with high school kids, but if they
I don't
aren't,
think so.
check them out. Check them out. They're pretty good.
I won't tell them mine either. What TV show are you currently watching?
I'm one of those guys who can't seem to get over The Office. I just keep watching the reruns. So I sit there on Netflix or Comedy Central and just watch the reruns because I can't seem to find a show that is just as good as The Office. The writing is so good. Parks and Rec is probably the next closest show for me. But I like watching true stories and biographies and documentaries. That's usually where I kind of lean towards, or live sports. So it's not many times that I'm watching a true show.
You're not all caught up in the ending of Game of Thrones?
No, it's not really my deal. Yeah.
Who's your favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? I'll just say Batman, just because he's a normal guy, just doing really cool stuff. And I love the quote. I don't know who said it, but they said, always be yourself unless you can be Batman. Always be Batman. I love that quote.
That is pretty good. Who's your favorite athlete of all time?
You know, there's so many. Man, an athlete that is always someone I've really enjoyed. You know, my family, my mom, her siblings, my grandparents, her parents, they all went to the University of Iowa. And so I grew up going to a lot of games at the University of Iowa. And the stadium is named after Niall Kinnick. And Niall was someone who won the Heisman Trophy for the University of Iowa and was tragically killed in a plane crash in World War II. And my parents always made an example of him as someone who not only succeeded athletically at a high level, but academically. And he really was a person of impact, and he's continued to have an impact on the state of Iowa long since his passing. And so our family kind of always held him up as a great example of someone whose athletic ability transcended sport into all of life. And so he's someone I've always kind of admired and looked up to. So I guess I go out of the blue there and say Niall Kinnick.
Wow, that's kind of an unexpected answer, but a good story. This is a good question. What's the best advice you ever received from a coach?
I'd go back to what I said that Coach Shanahan told me, because it applies so much to what you face in athletics, and that's tough times don't last, tough people do. And so many times when you face a tough time, you just want to quit. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to get back up on the horse, if you will. You just want to call it good. And everything in you, when things get tough, you want to give up. And you have to keep going. You have to you may transition, you may pivot to something else, but never stop. Keep going. Keep pushing. And so just remember, tough times don't last. Tough people do. And then another thing I've learned on my journey is that as you accomplish goals in life, you realize when you're climbing a mountain, if you will, and you get to the top of that mountain and the goal is reached, you'll enjoy it for a few minutes or a day or a week, but then you start to look around and you realize after climbing that mountain, there's only more mountains to climb. And so remember that whatever dream or objective you're chasing, that once you get there, there's going to be another one up ahead. And for me, that one is a Lombardi Trophy, the Super Bowl. That's what I'm chasing, so that's what we're after.
If you could call up 17-year-old Kirk Cousins on the phone, what would you tell him?
Well, I'd tell him stay the course because it all works out. But, you know,
don't change anything. Right, yeah.
You know, the biggest thing is for me, I was somebody who, and I said this at Michigan State last week when I spoke at the graduation, I said, when I went to Michigan State, the goal was to play in the Rose Bowl. And I was chasing after the Rose Bowl constantly with everything I did. Every workout, every lift, every practice, every meeting was to get to go to the Rose Bowl. And I chased that so hard that I think I forgot to stop and smell the roses along the way. And we came 30 seconds away from making it to the Rose Bowl. And while we didn't make it, the journey along the way was really special in and of itself. And so I would just encourage my 17-year-old self, and as a result, encourage all of you to take it all in along the way, to enjoy it, to appreciate it, not be so focused on the end product that you forget about the process to get there. And so enjoy the Tuesday practice, enjoy the Wednesday bus ride, enjoy all that comes with playing sports, because someday it'll be over and you'll just have those memories. So take it all in and be sure to enjoy it as you chase after those goals.
You want to lead us in a Skol chant before we go?
Depends how many Vikings fans we have here. I already asked you the Packers fans. We got any Vikings fans here? All right.
Yeah, there's some of them out there. Well, Kirk, thanks very much for doing
Thank
this
you.
and for your support of high school athletics in South Dakota.
All right, thank
Kirk
you so
Cousins,
much.
everyone.
Congrats to all the athletes. Best of luck.